when I talk to like really, really smart people like you, who we can talk about like the other side, right? Like the
Hmm.
side that doesn't like us, the side that, calls us like free willing liberals and that's just the future that liberals want. Like I part of me is a little bit of like that, like, Pollyanna centrist, that it's like, oh, we do have to find like some kind of way to live together, because if not, we're just both nuclear, blasting each other off the planet
Hmm.
together. You are a pretty sensible person. It's a very heated like year because of the election cycle.
Yeah.
For us bleeding heart liberals, like how do we navigate this?
Um, it's a moment by moment, like active coping for me, at
Mm,
least. Um, I get sucked into some of the doom spiraling and in social media, doom scrolling just as much as
mhm.
the next person.
MeMeCherry presents a series of fortunate events. Fortunate events. Fortunate events. A series of fortunate events.
Hello, hello, hello. Bonjour. Hola. It's me, Mimi Cherry, and you're back for another episode of the series of Fortunate Events Podcast. Brought to you by, I said it at the top. I got nervous. I don't know why. Like, I know you. See, it's the people that know me the best that I get like the most nervous with. And I call myself too, like, what are you doing? That's not even like the orientation of the intro. I'm Mimi Cherry, and I'm joined today by
Madeline.
Woo! Also known as Viola in the Keith and the Girl universe, but we're going to talk about things inside and outside the universe. So the multiverse is alive and well today in this podcast.
Yes, I love it.
So I probably will like switch and like call you both interchangeably by
That's totally
accident.
fair. That's true with most of the people I know through Keith and the Girl.
It actually wasn't in the agenda, but might as well, because it's a natural introduction into how we know each
Hmm.
other. It's this faraway land called Keith and the Girl land that gets referenced every once in a while. I mean, since the first
Hmm.
episode of this podcast. How long? So, what is Keith and the Girl?
It's the first podcast I ever got really into, and it's the longest running podcast. That
Yes.
I mean, I think it's pretty awesome, and I've met really awesome people through it.
Yes, oh my God, yes. How long have you been listening? I feel like I go as far back as 2015, 2017.
I've been listening to it since 2009,
Okay.
and
Or
I'm
is it
tattooed. No,
no, not
I was like, it
17,
has to
oh
be earlier than
seven.
that. You were
Yeah, oh seven.
OG,
Yeah, my
Mimi.
numbers are I'm being very 80 yeah.
Neurospicy.
Not numbers. Yes, neurospicy. Yes. Yes, oh seven. Not because I moved to Virginia. It might have been oh six actually, because I moved to Virginia in oh five. And I remember driving that car to and from like my mom's house to the office and listening to Keith and the Girl in the car.
Hmm.
They were
I
my
have so
commute
many sense memories like
yeah, they were
that.
my commute radio. So you've actually been an even more like of the in-person events. Like you've been very
Yeah.
much engaged in the community of it all, very much from the beginning. Like I didn't even go to like Keith and the Girl week when it was like Keith and the Girl week. Like talk to me about, because Rod also, I've been to some, but I went like later in life. I
Hmm.
went in the later seasons when they had gone off to college. But you were there like when it was like the high school rager. Tell
Uh-huh.
me like your
More
favorite
like
memories.
orgy.
Tell me your favorite memories and like maybe like yeah, the rose and the thorn of the old school Keith and the Girl weeks.
I think so I lived in Boston for a lot of the time that I was going down there, so it was really cheap for me to go.
Yeah.
It is not the same as it is for y'all over in California to like
Yeah.
zip over to New
Yeah.
York really quick
Just
and
pop
easy.
over.
For me, it was like a 4-hour bus ride. So that's why I got to go to so many.
Yeah.
But I think the rose would be the community, and uh, how many wonderful people I know because of it. Like my first boyfriend was from Keith and the Girl.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I dated I Like Cheese for a while.
Oh my
What a blast
God.
from the past, right?
Wow. And that's when I think OG names. That is like, that would be on my bingo card.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's so
That or
funny.
there's a whole bunch of other people. Like everybody got me confused with Vudel because we had those and both had those annoying bangs that covered most of our forehead. And our name started with V.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my gosh. And so then what was the thorn?
The thorn, I think, is um really having to how do I want to say this? I think my parasocial relationship with Keith and Hemda. Um,
I can
I've
relate.
listened to them for thousands of hours.
Yeah.
And can I interact with either of them in person like a normal goddamn human being? Absolutely not. Because I like feel like they're my best friends.
Yeah.
Um, and they are very wonderful people, both of them. And I really wish I was not such a weirdo about interacting with them because I feel like I can't genuinely express like how much I appreciate like how much they've taught me and stuff like that because I'm so in my head about how to interact with them.
Oh my God, I can relate 1,000%. And I think now identifying some of the neurospiciness in my brain, some of it makes a little bit more sense in terms of like the hyperfixation and then like the sensitivity around like rejection when like reality is just reality. But
Mm-hmm.
part of it is like, there was one of those kids in the girl weeks that like, but that I think part of what I forget is that it wasn't my but my deeper connection of why I actually even spent the night at that house wasn't even Hamda, it was Hennessy. But for
Mm,
some reason, I'm like, I spent the night at Hamda's house, so we're friends. But we were friendly, but we weren't friends. And then I remember the last Keith and the Girl week that I went, like that reality like smacked me in the face that like, no, these are just people that
mm,
I know, that I'm friendly with, and I know really, really well, and they know me really, really well, but we're not friends, and that's okay. But like I was a little
yeah,
butthurt when I first like realized it.
of course. Anybody would.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, it's so interesting. I just, pod father and pod mommy because this little baby reptile podcast wouldn't have come out of its shell, figuratively and literally. So beyond our nerdy community that we found
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in. And it really is a community, and I appreciate it so much. And I appreciate you because you bring it's like especially the Wednesday night chats. It can feel a little wild, wild westy sometimes, and you bring some levity to it, and you bring some like not parental guidance because it's not parental, but it's like but you bring wisdom and sometimes literal guidance. Like sometimes you take like it gets a little off the rails and you're the sense kind of like in the room that like brings it back to like
Mm-hmm.
reality or like respectfulness or like you know again I love chaos, but like sometimes you gotta like ding ding ding, okay, enough chaos. You're good at
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
So I feel like a big part of why you're good at that is your background in psychology.
Yeah, that's accurate. So I'm a counseling psychologist, by training, and I work as a professor now.
Hmm.
But I like to say that like the start of my counseling career was providing IT services to librarians.
Oh,
Yeah, over the phone. I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology, and you've never done anything harder than like guiding a librarian who hates computers over the phone without seeing what she's doing as to like how to enter a book into the software when
oh my
all
God,
she
yeah.
wants is her card catalog.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like I have a lot of like experience with like managing a little bit of chaos throughout my whole career, but
Hmm.
there's definitely a lot of things that I think influence how I show up in the world, including my clinical work.
Of course. And you also have a passion for social justice. So how do those come
Hmm
together in your life?
So I think that if someone experiences oppression, they are not well. If someone
Mhm.
oppresses others, they are also not well. There's something
Mm,
that you get taken away from your essential humanity when you're complicit in the oppression of other people. So my goal as a psychologist, as well as like a human being, is to make the world a little bit of a better place than I left
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And a huge part of that is examining like how social systems influence the way that we like view the world and how that harms us,
yeah,
as well as like ways in which we can obtain joy from it too.
yeah. I find myself sometimes yearning to when I talk to like really, really smart people like you, who we can talk about like the other side, right? Like the
Hmm.
side that doesn't like us, the side that, calls us like free willing liberals and that's just the future that liberals want. Like I part of me is a little bit of like that like, Pollyanna centrist that it's like, oh, we do have to find like some kind of way to live together because if not, we're just both nuclear, blasting each other off the planet
Hmm.
together. You are a pretty sensible person. It's a very heated like year because of the election cycle.
Yeah.
For us bleeding heart liberals, like how do we navigate this?
Um, it's a moment by moment, like active coping for me, at
Mm,
least. Um, I get sucked into some of the doom spiraling and in social media, doom scrolling just as much as
mhm.
the next person. But I think what I try to like focus on is how long this path towards justice is, and that it's not going to be decided by what happens in November, but by the individual choices that like thousands upon thousands of people are going to make. So
Yeah,
like, how can I contribute towards that something positive? What can I do in my community that like gives me hope beyond like electoral politics? Because I
yeah,
think that's how like systems of power win is by telling us that like doing one thing one day every 4 years
yeah.
is enough to build good communities. Uh,
There's
I feel
this
like that was a pivot from your original question, but that's
no,
how
no,
I've been
no.
coping.
No, no, no. I love it because it leads me to another one. Um, I've noticed like and it becomes like a meme of itself, and I feel like we need to rebrand it that like this is the most important election of your life. This is the like if I had a dollar for every time I think we need to like rebrand this approach of galvanizing people. Again,
Yeah.
you're a very smart person. If you were in the room of the branding of like the world, this is World HQ. And
Hmm.
we're gonna rebrand, how we should look at voting. Like, how would you encourage people who are feeling apathetic and maybe overwhelmed about like so much that's happening in the world that to be engaged besides this is the most important election of your life?
I would say like every change starts with a small step, and
Yeah.
voting is a very small step. It's very easy. The guidelines are clear. You know when to do it, how to do it, or at least a lot of people do. The other parts of change that we need are harder to figure out. So take voting as a starting point.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of how I would rebrand voting is that it's like an actual patriotic thing to do, which I feel gets like lost because we're so like one side versus the other.
Yeah. 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 That it's about the bigger picture at the end of the day.
Mm.
Yeah, I know that for me, part of what helps me kind of navigate and cope is throwing myself into my art. And you have artistic endeavors that I'm just in awe about. Actually, recently, Phoebe on in my crumble opinion, she's been doing these video essays on media, and she did one about ghosts, and she really got into like the pottery aspect and the pottery scene and like how tactile it is and like
Hmm.
the sexuality of it all and like the top and the bottom of it all. And it was so deep. And I was like, okay, okay, Phoebe, okay, Professor Phoebe, what draws you to pottery? And is it one of those things that like you like me throw yourself into to like just not have to like deal with the world all the time?
Um, I kind of fell into pottery. Like a professor told me that I needed to get a life outside of what I was doing, crusading for the larger world. Thank you, Dr. Hayden. And at the same time, a friend invited me to a pottery class. And
Yeah.
it turns out I was like good at it. And I just needed to find my medium to like be able to
Yeah.
express myself as an artist. And you're absolutely right. That's a huge part of how I like cope with using my brain all day. I could turn it off. I get to feel. It's where I get
Mm-hmm.
to be mindful. I really
Mm-hmm.
struggled with mindfulness as
Yes.
a neurospicy person. And I
Yes.
was being taught how to do it from the clinician side. And so
Yeah.
part of that is they make you like have your medicine too. So they're like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we're going to start class today by meditating. And I'm like, I fucking hate this. This sucks. This sucks real hard. I can't sit still like this. Or like on different days, I'm disabled and chronically ill, and I'd be like, all I feel is my pain. Why would I
Yeah.
opt into an experience where like my pain like just like amplifies like so many times over? I spend a lot of my time trying to minimize the pain I experience.
Yeah.
And so
Navigating.
it uh it was pottery that taught me to be mindful,
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
anything else.
How long have you been doing pottery?
Since 2016.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Like, was it a response to Trump? No.
No, just a happy or unhappy coincidence.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What is your favorite part of learning pottery, and what was like your learning curve? Like, there had to be something in the beginning that you struggled with in the artistic
Mhm.
process. Like, what was that thing that you were like, "Ugh, I just got to keep practicing it."
Um, this is like kind of parallel to my development as a psychologist, but like learning when to stop
Hmm.
because I was pursuing this like machine made expectation of a perfect pot.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my skills were not up to that level. So
Yeah.
I was like shooting way, way, way out of my league. And I ruined a lot of pots by like pushing myself to try and make that instead of embracing where my skills were and what I was capable
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. Yeah. What's it called? That Japanese modality of taking like the broken pottery pieces and putting them back
Kitsungi.
together. Oh, I love that concept. I want to learn how to do that.
It is very cool. It's also very hazardous to your health because the gold is like
Oh,
aerosolized. So it looks
gross.
really cool at the end, but it turns out it's a whole pain in the ass to do.
So many
Since we're
beautiful things
talking,
are.
yeah, since we're talking about Japanese pottery stuff, I have to tell you about the other word that I love from Japan that has to do
Yeah,
with
yeah.
art
Yeah.
and mindfulness. It's called wabi sabi,
I've seen that. Yes, 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 yes.
which is like it's perfectly imperfect. You just got to
Yes.
embrace it, right?
Yeah.
If it's a little wonky, that wonk was supposed to be there, and that is what shows that it's a handmade object. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
perfect.
Yes. And that there's beauty in that.
Hmm.
Oh my God, yes. Ugh. Ugh, my brain. I'm just like, I'm having one of those days where I'm just like, oh, I love my life. Everything's great. But like this one thing that didn't go exactly how I wanted to is like in the back of my brain and just like bugging me. It's like I keep finding myself on the verge of tears. And it's like I keep reminding myself that no, like that neurospicy part of my brain that keeps trying to say like, "Oh, I'm a big old loser." It's like, "No, I'm not." Like, and I might not be perfect, but my imperfections are what make me who I am. And like
Hmm.
that's okay. I've been having this like not existential crisis, but like dating kind of like semi crisis that like I feel like I'm too straight for the queers and oh now I'm gonna start crying. Like and I had this fear because I had left a note with like a sticker to the podcast, and then suddenly I was like, "Oh my God, there's so much gay shit on there." And like, what if like, you need
Mm,
to like slowly introduce people into like all this shit. But then it's like, no, I shouldn't have to feel that way. And then
yes.
like I'm trying to navigate like dating more in like the queer spaces and like really trying to like tap into like more of a pansexuality, not a bisexuality, because bisexuality is like so in the binary. And
Hmm.
then like I feel like a little baby like deer, because I just don't know how to
Yes.
like navigate it. And then part of me And then the other day when I was like dealing with this kind of like feeling of rejection, I threw myself into editing my best friend's not wedding pictures. And then I just started bawling because I was like, I love my friends. I love my queer little weirdo, beautiful, loving friends. And even if I don't find a romantic partner, like I'm full of love and like I have so much love in my life. And like, you know, anyways, it's just one of those days.
I mean, there's so much you shared that I really appreciate and also like relate to, right? Like the biphobia and monosexualism that
Yeah.
happens inside of both straight and gay communities, how like a a bisexual umbrella identifying person really has a lot of like internalized biphobia with how to even interact with other potential romantic partners. I'm a
Yeah.
goofy weirdo around
Yeah.
other queer people, and it's hard to think about how I can be a goofy weirdo and also be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
how you
Yeah.
doing?"
I know. I know. I was having like a very, frank conversation recently with some friends trying to navigate that other side. Like, okay, well, if I'm gonna open myself up to like, you know, I don't know, dating just not the cisgender straight man that like most has been most of my life. And then I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And they're like, don't do that. And it's like, ah, so it's just like, then I'm like, well, I'll just run to the straight cisgender tall man at the gym that like, I know at least how to navigate that. But then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, then I got to navigate rejection because, and then it's just like, ah. So anyways.
The lessons meet you wherever you're at.
I know. I was telling my bestie, I was like, I feel so embarrassed. And she was like, that means that you're close to revelation. Embrace the cringe.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, okay, let's take this into a little silly rabbit hole before our commercial break. I wanted to play a little game with you called Pottery Personality.
Mm,
And I'm going to give you what ChatGPT told me are pottery techniques, and I want you to associate them with personality traits.
okay.
So hand building, like somebody who does hand building pottery, what are those personality trait likes?
I think they're the best because I hand build. In general, we are like the Birkenstock wearing hippy dippy people in pottery. We like the uniqueness and individuality of everything and embrace a little bit of messiness.
Mm, I like
Mm.
the embracing of the messiness. I was stoning something earlier and like there's this one spot that has like a little bit of glue on it, and I'm like, no, no glue spot. And then it's like, Banana, it's okay. The crowd is not gonna see
Not
the
gonna
glue
see it.
spot. Wheel throwing. What is the wheel throwing personality?
Um, so that's the other like bigger technique inside of pottery. Oftentimes, the people who are wheel throwers, especially production potters, are very, very precise. They can make you 100 of the same thing and they'll look the exact same.
Mm, some of that
Um,
muscle memory is like in there.
yeah,
Is that the ghost one?
yes, that is the ghost one.
Is that the ghost
It's the ghost one. It's
one?
really fun.
And let's take a little a bit before I do the last couple of ones. Talk to me through the process of like, picking out your materials. Like, what's it like handling a material and then having to basically chemically induce it into a different form and like praying that it ends up coming out somewhat looking like what you put it in. Walk me through that process.
So the first process starts with picking out your clay.
Hmm.
For me, a lot of the clay that I choose is based on what I'm going to end up glazing it with, which is a step that's like 4 steps down the line. So
But
certain
but
glazes,
it's almost like chess that you're thinking like 5 steps
exactly,
ahead. Okay.
exactly. So certain glazes interact with a clay body in a certain way that like creates something that I really like. Um, every clay
And then
body
a
interacts.
clay body is like different types of clay because there's
Mhm.
obviously different types of clay.
Yeah, so it's made from different things, or it has different proportions in it, or it has different, you put tiny little ground up pieces of pottery inside of the new clay to give it some structure. So it also depends on
Oh,
like what kind of like ground up clay they're using inside of the new clay.
huh. That's so fascinating. So you pick your material,
Hmm.
You hand mold it?
I hand make it. So I know how to wheel throw and hill hand build, so I'm versed even in pottery land. Um, I you make it, and that usually involves some level of like making and drying.
Mm.
And you wait
Does it
until
shrink in the drying process?
it shrinks a ton. So
So
my
you
clay
have
that
to
I use,
consider that.
my clay
Uh-huh.
shrinks about 14% from the beginning of the process to the end. And that doesn't sound a lot until like you throw like what you think is an awesome coffee cup and it's like an espresso mug.
It's that me espresso.
Yes.
Or do you etch things into it? And is that in before the shrinking, after the shrinking? Do you take that into consideration with the shrinkage?
Yeah. So I carve and I stamp things into the clay usually when before it gets fired the first time. So anytime in that
Mm.
initial making process, um, I'll carve or I'll add underglaze or I will add clay like by adding a handle or something like that.
There's a person online that does these swirl cups, and then they do this process where like they blow bubbles, and it's like I guess that's the glaze, and it's like different colors, and like I am fascinated by that.
It's so fun to bubble glaze because it's like you're five. All you do is like mix in this like essentially ceramic paint with some dishwashing liquid and water, and you bubble it just like you blow bubbles. It's so fun.
Oh, I
I've
want to
only
learn how
done
to
a
do
couple
that.
pieces like it, but it
Ah,
was a great time.
it's giving very me energy. Okay, so a glazing personality type.
Um, so I would say that's lots of people who are interested in functional wear, so stuff that you could eat or drink out of. Lots of people who don't like glazing are more like sculptural and like arty, and they'd be the kind of person who'd create art that you'd see in a museum,
Okay.
which is not as much my jam.
Yeah, for some reason my brain my hang out with too many drag queens brain for half a second went to like Folsom Street Fair when thinking of
Uh,
glazing. And then your
yes.
description immediately started to go there too. And I was like, my own little joke. And that's why I was like, they don't understand why I'm laughing right now. Let me explain my giggle. Last but not least, a sculpting personality.
A sculptor. So I would say sculptors are more often very serious, classically trained artists. I'm
Mm.
a community studio based artist. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
difference between community college and going to like get your doctorate, right? Um,
Yeah.
one uses bigger words to do a lot of the same thing.
Yeah, when I worked at Fair Studios, the principal, he's a fine artist, and his modality was sculptures and but like in metal. And his that studio, which was like part, business, part warehouse of like his pieces, but some of them were fascinating, but they're like so weird, some of them too, but it's just
Hmm.
like that's art.
Yeah, I just went to an exhibit at the Seattle Art Museum and it was on funk art, Funk art. And it was a
Okay.
guy who just made a toilet out of clay and then just put a bunch of colors on it. And he's like, there you go. You're welcome.
Ta-da! Banana on a wall.
Yes.
Um, with that in mind, let's go to my banana on a wall, a quick little commercial break.
In my crumble opinion.
With Sam's work finally done, he can move on, and Sam says his goodbyes. At this point, we're all ugly crying. Sam says, I love you, Molly. I always have. And bitch, you know what Molly says. She says, ditto. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. And then Sam says, it's amazing, Molly. The love inside you, you take it with you. And then he walks to heaven. And that's Ghost. Jesus, what a great film. I'm sorry. I'm like actually verklempt.
In my crumble opinion.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that little commercial break. So we have a little bit more. I feel like we've dabbled a little bit, but we both are very passionate about drag, and I feel that you also, like me, see drag as a form of queer liberation, not necessarily like we both enjoy the Disney version of drag, but we both fight for the queer liberation of it too. When I say drag as a form of queer liberation, what does that bring up in you? Like, what would you
It
say?
honestly, the first thing it brought up was a performance by a local artist here, Barbie Wire,
Mm.
which what a great name. I love it. Uh, and by here I mean Memphis. When I first moved here, I hadn't seen a live local drag show in a while. And she invited us at when we bought our tickets to write down the thing that we are most ashamed of.
Mm.
And then we put it in a basket. Most ashamed of related to our queer identity. My apologies.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then she did a number where she ate that on stage after she gave us crystals. And it was the most moving experience. And she was like, I let this go for you. And it felt like healing and freedom and connection.
Yes.
And the air felt electric.
Yeah.
And I think the closest I can get to describing it is like what some people feel when they're at church,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a
Yeah.
traditional, like Christian style church or any other religious kind of ceremony.
Yeah.
But I feel connected to something bigger than myself. I feel seen. I don't have to be like the star of the show to feel seen. I'm seen by just
Yes.
being in the audience.
Yeah.
And I really love how free drag artists are to express themselves. I love
Yes.
RuPaul's Drag Race. Don't get me wrong. That's great. But I would much rather see a local queen take a pile of trash and turn it into a number.
How dare you talk about my drag mother like that? Um good thing I only have one. I have more than one, so you don't know which one it is. Um so if you have you ever done drag?
No, I'm not an in front of the spotlight kind of gal.
But even just like to like get up in the geesh, like to just to like, become a monster for like a
Mm-hmm.
day. What does your wig fantasy look like? Like you're designing your ideal wig. Like what does that wig look like on you?
I
I'm so
feel like
curious what your drag persona would be.
it'd have to be big, right? Because drag's all about proportions, and I'm
Proportionizing.
quite a large cisgender woman.
What?
So I think it would have to be something rainbow because I'm a pretty colorful kind of gal, probably with
Yes.
a good amount of hair tinsel in it. But I'm thinking um like a beehive updo, kind of
Oh
swirled into almost like a
yes.
Dole Whip kind of top.
Yes.
That's what I imagine
And
for my wig.
and then
My my
your
ensemble.
look. Yes, your ensemble.
Um, I tend to go for pretty femme looks in
Okay.
general. Not a lot of like uh I'm not a shower of skin as much as I used to be. Because
Sure.
most people aren't like, yeah, I really want a very sexy therapist. That's not.
Yeah, I
People
do.
go to therapy for other reasons. Um,
That's probably why I need more therapy.
so I think I would go for something pretty feminine, probably like a 1950s like new
Ooh,
style Dior silhouette with a bunch of petticoats underneath.
yes.
And I would be not working those heels. I would
Yeah.
be in very comfortable flat,
Oh yeah.
maybe even a jelly sandal, as Katya has threatened to do many a time.
Yes. Yes. My not it's my Rollin debut. And because it's Rollin, you're supposed to be on wheels most of the time. It's roller skates, but they do allow other forms of wheels. I will not be on roller skates, but I will be on other forms of wheels. But I will also be wearing little ballet flats because I'm hoping to pull out a little stunt at the end that I've been practicing at the gym, which is where the Delulu started to like be born because like I'm doing the splits in the middle of the gym every morning. Of course, people are looking at me. It doesn't mean that they want to date me. And are you doing like a ballad? Are you doing a monologue? Are you doing like a cunty, a bitch track? Like,
I think
what are
I'm
we
doing
performing?
a pretty cunty remix that includes like both songs and like famous pop culture references. Um,
Yes.
my favorite example of this is the genius of Violencia exclamation point, who was on
Yes.
only one season or one episode of uh the
Dracula,
Boulet
right?
brothers.
Yeah, Dracula.
Um Dragula. She did a mix where she was in an inflatable cow costume and came out to move bitch get out the way. And then she stripped down to a baby cow outfit. And then she stripped down again to having pasties that had mini milk bottles attached to them that she twirled
Stop
in
it.
the air to milkshake.
Stop it. Oh my God, I
So
love
I
that.
want
I'm
I want that
obsessed.
kind of artistry, right? I've thought about
Yes.
everything. I've thought through all
Yes.
the details.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah,
it might not be a frequent
yes.
performance, but it's going to be an excellent one.
That's giving me coded. Like I'm gonna perform twice a year max, but I'm gonna put a lot of freaking effort into it. And now this time, before I've relied on others to really help me because of course that's like a baby drag queen and I have community. But this is the first one that like I'm producing the number. I'm like collecting my little minions. I'm stoning my costume. I'm debating. I think I get away with this, and I think because I'm doing so much already. Do have new wigs, but I'm still scared of the wigs, and so because I stoned, this is gonna come out after I already did it. So I'm doing Chappelle Roan's. I'm doing Chaperone Hot to Go, but wearing a stoned Krispy Kreme Hot Now t-shirt, and I ordered on eBay like the real like Krispy Kreme little paper hats. I'm stoning those. I'm gonna have little como se dice waiter minions. I'm gonna draw the logo on their aprons, and I'll literally be flying in from LA that morning. I'm gonna land, leave honey here, get on BART, go to the one Krispy Kreme here in the East Bay, pick up mini donuts, come back, and then get ready for the gig because part of the number is that they're gonna be giving out, Krispy Kreme donuts, mini donuts,
The
while I do hot to go.
the dedication, the artistry, iconic, iconic.
Well, and my sweet, sweet Charles Hawthorne reminded me while I was recording with them that this is the biggest stage in the Bay Area because it's an outdoor space and
Mhm.
it's just a big space. So again, I'm glad that I've put so much thought into it. Oh yeah, and then my wheels because I'm scared of roller skates because I am 44 years old and I've broken a bone now in my life and I am scared to break another bone. But I ordered a flatbed dolly that you can like one that I know can carry my weight. And my beefy hair bestie is gonna be my pony that like pulls me around on it.
Ah,
And I've been
I'm so
practicing my lip
excited.
sync. Yeah, and I've been practicing. And again, it's like, duh, Delulu. Like, no wonder people look at you. I'm practicing my lip sync every day on the treadmill. And then for 30 minutes, I'm practicing my splits. My God.
I'd be
Uh,
like, that is a motivated and dedicated woman. She knows what
oh,
she needs to
no.
do and she is working for it.
Yes, no, and it's always the ladies that come through. They compliment my little pop flex outfits. They compliment my splits. They compliment my dedication. This morning, I did finally see like I've been scoping out the trainers, and I love my flexologist, but it's like I have to go so far to my way to go see him. And now I'm in the gym every morning, and it's close by, and I think I'm gonna transition to like working with a trainer again. But so many of them are so focused on like very I don't want to call it basic, but like just I don't want like the usual training. I want somebody that will look at my body and like optimize it to be a dancer. That's it. Like I don't want you to think about me losing weight. I don't want you to think about making my muscles bigger. Like I don't want to be so sore that I can't stretch. I want flexibility and I want
Mhm.
endurance. And there's this little female bodied trainer And I saw her cleaning up. I assume her. I saw her cleaning up, and I love a gym person that cleans up their gym because that means that they care about the place that they work at, and that means that they
Mm-hmm.
care about their clients. And so I'm like, excuse me, so I did, and I'm like, I want a trainer basically that will help me with my goal of like a dancer's body. And she's like, well, I used to be a dancer, and I was like, I knew I came to you for a reason. So I'm hoping she's like the new cog in the wheel that will keep me like happy and focused and healthy and like because it's been a journey. It's been such a
Yeah.
journey to like get out of the hole of like depression.
I feel like having any kind of movement be like neutral to joyful is just impossible if you've lived in America for more than a decade. We have so many unhealthy things about how we interact with our bodies, how we view our bodies. And
Yeah,
I'm still working on, my relationship to that, as well as
I
like
know.
how much physical capacity I have for
I
movement in addition to
know.
basic life skills. It's
I know, and
complicated.
I feel for you, and like part of me is like, oh my God, shut up, Mariana, like, you
Mm-mm.
know, but I at the same time, for a long time have dealt with like really, really serious chronic pain. I did not think I would be able to move like this again. Like for a while there, I thought that like my body was gonna be stuck at that level of pain and mobility, and I've been fighting for the last 6 months to just like get that mobility back. And I still feel pain, and I sometimes push through it in an unhealthy way. And so again, I'm trying to find that balance where like if I'm sore and I'm tired, I you don't go to the gym, Mariana. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to rest. And like yeah. Ugh.
That's another message we don't hear enough in America. Like, it is okay to rest. Like, you do not have to be doing something
Yeah.
every single moment of the day.
I know.
It's
I
harder to
know.
practice that, though. I struggle with practicing it.
Yeah, yeah. I struggle with like the extremes. I'm either in an extreme of like hyper proactivity or like
Mm-hmm.
a huge extended slump where like I feel like just the bare minimum gets done. Which hey, that's surviving sometimes. But oh my gosh, it's hard out here for a pimp.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any drag performers or shows outside of the main race that have particularly inspired you or helped you through difficult times? There was a time there that Drag Race did help me out of a really deep depression.
So, apologies if you hear my dog. She's
Oh, no,
barking.
no
She's a
worries.
corgi. That's her job.
We're a dog family here.
Um, so there's two drag artists in the Seattle area that got me through my internship. So that's Bodega. It's spelled Beao or Beau and then space and Degas, like the
Ah,
artist, which is
yes.
cheese.
Yes.
And the other person is Margaret at the office.
Oh.
Um, they got me through internship, which was the last year of my program before I got my doctorate. And they did a really wonderful number to Total Eclipse of the Heart, where one of them literally dressed as the moon and turned the other one turned them around when it says turn around on a like swirly
Yes.
chair. It was everything. I recorded it. I watch it regularly. I went to Seattle recently and I was like, where are you doing shows? I need to see you. Unfortunately, it did not work out, but shout out to them. Um, Here in Memphis, Rainbow Rumble happens every month and is organized by Moth, local queen. Unfortunately, the venue they were using just closed
Oh
like over
no.
this past week. So I don't know where they're going to be living, but it's a drag competition show that's like really wholesome and positive. Every level of drag artistry is shown from someone who is their first time to someone who is like a very seasoned veteran. And
I love that.
it is very wholesome and positive. Like what you wish Drag Race was if like Mr. Rogers was in charge.
I kind of like that.
Like
That would
Moth has,
that would be the host that me and you would produce.
yes, Moth has more manic energy than Mr. Rogers does, but
Yeah.
it's the same vibe.
Same. Yeah, no, that number, I mean, so many concepts, right, are like just kind of burned in the brain. So my drag sibling, Hands, and their co-drag mother, because we share a drag mother. Mama Celeste is both our drag mother, but Mama Celeste does not have drag children by themselves. So there's always like a co-parent somewhere. So Hands comes from the drag family of Florida Man. And so Florida and Mama were most recently on episode 100. I say all that to say that at a recent roll-in during the eclipse, it was when the eclipse was happening, so it was very topical to the eclipse. Hands was the moon, their partner was the sun, and Florida was the earth. And then it was like a three-way love triangle story as like the sun, and like the sun appears at the top of the hill, and Hands was another one, again very very drag family coded. They were not on roller skates, they were on a little rolly chair. And somebody was turning them like on their axis with like a rope. I think it might have been Florida, like had the rope tied to like a rolling scooter and like as the earth.
Amazing.
And then the sun is coming down, like serenading.
Oh,
So good.
so good. This is
Shout
why
out
drag is
Hands.
queer
Queer
liberation, truly.
liberation. Yes. Yes. Tivana. Name of the probably will be the name of the podcast. Oh my gosh. But yes, just shout out to drag families, shout out to drag performers that do amazing content. Everything from laughing my little eyes out to crying my little eyes out has happened at a drag show. And like I always say now, it's the cheapest ticket you'll get to Adele and Beyonce in town.
Yeah, truly.
Let's play a little drag inspired game, but let's throw a little pottery in there. Let's come up with some drag names. And maybe how about like we go back and forth with like a draggy prompt and then a pottery prompt. Although I feel like you would probably know the pottery themes better. So maybe I throw the draggy
Okay,
portion and you throw the pottery, but we can interchange first and last name. That's what we
that's
can
good.
interchange. How about you kick off first name pottery themed and I'll give them a last name drag themed.
Uh, Kitsungi.
Kitsungi. I'm like, don't go too offensive. Um Kitsungi Kiara.
I love it.
Yes,
Uh,
that feels draggy. I was gonna go Kitsungi Kimono and I was like, no, that's a little too Kim K.
all right.
How
How about,
about
okay,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you had something.
I was gonna say fettle.
Fettle?
Fettle. Fettle.
What is the
It is like removing excess clay with a metal rib.
ooh, Fettle with that with something about the metal rib gives me like they would be part of the Von Teese family,
Mm-hmm.
like a Fettle Von
Mm-hmm.
Teese,
Yeah,
and they do
I
like
like it.
burlesque numbers.
Yes. Yes.
What about Aurora?
Hmm. How about Aurora oil spot?
What's an oil spot?
It's a type of glaze that looks like, you know how oil has rainbows on it when you see it on the
Uh-huh.
ground? It looks like
Uh-huh.
that frozen in time as the glaze.
Oh my God, that sounds so cool. Oil Spot, I love that. From the House of Oil Spot. Ooh. It reminds me of that challenge when Aquaria came out as that like oil mermaid.
Yes.
Yes, it's giving that fantasy. Um, what about I'm gonna take a pottery concept, ceramic, and you give them a drag last name.
The only thing I can think of is ceramic cunt. That's it.
I
It's
love
like the
that.
most breakable
It's straight to
drag
the point.
queen.
It's straight to the point, and they're British.
Yes.
Um, and we'll finish this off. If all these drag queens are in a house,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pottery themed house name. We are the house of,
Celadon.
ooh, what is that?
That is a type of glaze that's like semi-transparent. So give you a little bit color, but it's
Oh,
also see-through.
House of Theladon.
Yes.
It does sound draggy.
Yeah.
It's giving Versace.
Yes.
Okay, let's finish this up with a quick little therapy. Busting of the myth. Let's do some therapy myth busting.
Yes, I'm so
So,
excited.
first of all, for the person that thinks the therapist is just gonna be a know-it-all and tell them how to live their life, how do we myth that bust? How do we bust that myth?
So a good therapist is kind of like a lawyer in the way that they take their knowledge of psychology and partner with you with your knowledge of what the events were to collaborate and make a final product. You're
Mm,
not looking for someone who is like a dictator, who
mm-hmm.
tells you what to do and expects you to follow their words like perfectly. So most therapists actively avoid giving advice.
Mm,
And it's
mm-hmm.
something I have to talk about with my students all the time. Like, you generally don't want to do that. You have to help your client figure out what their actual opinion is that's
Mm.
like deep under like 7 layers of, stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that people should be seeing a therapist ongoing forever, or do you think that like seasonal, like in times of needs, and then once you feel like a chapter's closed, it's okay to like move on and fly on your own for a while? Because I feel like I'm in that place right now.
I'm in full support of both, depending on what the client's needs are. So
Sure.
me myself, I've been in therapy pretty continuously since I was 17.
Yeah.
I have a lot of unpacking from my childhood to do, and I've done a lot
Yeah.
of that. And now I'm currently in a like really stressful job and navigating some identity stuff. I know that like in the next 5 years, I'm not going to have to be in therapy anymore because I'm not dealing with so many big bumps.
Yeah.
For other people who maybe didn't have the childhood that I did or aren't navigating some of the chronic stressors that I have, I think seasonal works fine. Be in therapy as long as you feel like it's helpful.
Yeah.
There's no
And what do you
prescription.
that's actually, thank you. That's actually very honest and I appreciate that. What do you think about people that reject therapy because then it's going to trigger? Like, I don't want to talk about my past. I don't want to talk about things that happened. Like, what do you say to that person?
I think um, all of us as humans benefit from having our truths be witnessed, whether that's your
Mm,
therapist, your pastor, your spiritual guider, your best friend. I don't really care, but you have to talk to somebody honestly and vulnerably about what's actually going on with you.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of like, saying like, I don't care who you do that with. I know that we all have that innate human need.
Yeah.
And in modern day America, it is easiest to get a therapist to truly listen to you.
Sure. Last but not least, therapy is too expensive and not accessible to everyone. That's for bougie rich people.
It is really expensive and it isn't accessible to everybody. But just because of the pressures of modern day capitalism, let me rephrase that. I know that modern day capitalism is not invested in my well-being. So I try
Hmm.
and do as much as I can to maintain my well-being, and I budget a lot for my own personal therapy as a
Yeah.
luxury I have, and I think it's unjust that it is really hard for people to access it. The perception that it's only for rich people, and to be honest, Mimi, the one I've heard more often is therapy is for white people.
White people. Yeah.
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 Um, is to say that like white therapists are for white people. There are other kinds of therapists out there who share identities and experiences with you, or who are more sensitive to what you experience.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to if you are an urban, low income person of color, are you going to drive out to the suburbs to go see who mama's soccer mom is? Like,
Yeah.
no, you need to see someone who has more of your lived experiences, who is sensitive to what your needs are. And those people
Yeah.
are out there.
Yeah.
And there's resources available to you to get therapy that's less expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was in crisis at the beginning of the year after my breakup, like I had dabbled in it before, but hadn't really like fully given it the full shot. And so I signed up for BetterHelp because it was going to match me up with somebody within 24 hours. And I just like
Yeah.
needed that immediate access to help. And she
Mm-hmm.
was very helpful at that time. And she helped me navigate the breakup. And then we started navigating some like family stuff. And it helped a lot. But then low key started to trigger some of that stuff because then she flaked on me so many times at the last minute, like, oh, the first time it's like, oh, I didn't realize my daughter. And it was always like something with, and again, I get it, but
Mm-hmm.
like that's low key triggering my childhood stuff that I'm dealing with you about, like me not feeling like a priority to my own fucking mother. And
Yeah.
so after a while, I had to just kind of like quietly drop her because after the fourth or fifth time, it was just like, okay, ma'am, I don't even trust what you're telling me anymore because you know that this is something that I'm dealing with and
Yeah.
you're doing it to me.
Yes. And I think there's like two things I want to say in response to that. One is that I was a trauma focused therapist when I was practicing,
Yeah.
and I would often explicitly tell clients it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like lancing like an infected wound. Like I have to poke a hole in it so we can get this pus out. It's not going to be a fun time, but we all know we're
Yeah.
doing this for the better.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough therapists talk about that in informed consent. That like it's not going to be linear, like every session you're going to feel better because that is
Yeah.
a lie.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is overpromising our efficacy. We are not magicians.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was interesting because the last couple of days but I feel like the work that I did with her helped me navigate the little bit of spiraling that I was doing the last couple of
Mm-hmm.
days. And helping to like verbalize the neurospiciness, helping to verbalize the rejection sensitivity, helping to verbalize the hyper focus. Like it helped, but I feel like next time I need like an explicitly queer therapist
Yes.
because I think part of what I was navigating in terms of like those feelings of not feeling straight enough for the straights and not feeling queer enough for the queers, like knowing now after having worked for her for as long as I did, I know that she would not have been able to like help me navigate that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think refining the search for the next therapist would, I think me keeping that in mind in the forefront as like being a need. I'm not really bad. I've gotten better at vocalizing my needs and framing things based on what? My needs? What a concept. People pleaser much?
Too
Anyhow,
relatable.
I know. I swear this wasn't a therapy session, y'all. It's just that I feel very safe with you and it's just yeah. Okay, so we've gotten to the point where I get to tell you that if you do or don't have a therapist, but you have a little secret that you want to share anonymously and you want to share it in a safe space where you will not be judged, you can send it to me. But I won't know it's from you. The Whisper Lounge is my new little baby podcast that I'm trying to get off the ground where your secrets are safe with Mimi. SoFePod.com/. Come send me some little whispers. Send me your little secrets. We all have secrets. We all love secrets. I know I'm voyeuristic, and I'm sure that many of you are. So come on a little voyeuristic journey with Mimi. And the other amazing thing that's happening is the Patreon. And very
Mm.
coded of like launching something and it being in beta. Sign up while I'm still tinkering with the tiers and they're really just getting better. Like the benefits are just tinkering in your favor.
Mm.
So
Mm.
if you've heard me promote the Patreon in previous episodes and saying like something about every 2 months and every this and every that, nope. That back end on Patreon is not that sophisticated. So literally, even the bottom tier, you get something, everybody gets something in the mail every month. Every month. You get something in the mail. So sign up for the honey tier where you get production credit, you get access to the back catalog, you get behind the scenes content like hot cam, and you got a little hot cam from our episode today. And then you'll be getting a sticker and a little note written from me in the mail every month. If you sign up to the sugar tier, you'll get more stickers every month instead of one. You'll probably get two or three and an if you want me to write something custom in your note, I'll be happy to write you a little custom note. And you also get the production credit. You get the access to the behind the scenes. You get access to this. You get to say you're a sugar patron. And then if you really want to get nice and sweet with me, you can be in the caramel tier where you get all the production credit, you get the access, you get the stickers. But this is the one that I will do some extra back end tracking to send you a t-shirt every 6 months. That I can track. So yes, sign up to the Patreon. It helps an independent little glittery pirate ship radio like mine that's been fully self-funded since 2017. I really want to keep trying to make this bigger, better, stronger. I want to make a network happen. I want to make the dad network happen. I want to amplify more voices beyond mine. I want to help produce other shows. And these are all just all the little things that you can help to, spread a glittery gay voice like mine. I mean, I'm gay adjacent. Anything that you would like to add to our closing thoughts and not prayers?
If folks are interested in my pottery, I have an Instagram for
Yeah.
it that is where you can buy my things. I'm inconsistently have things available online. My Instagram is pots, P-O-T-S, for the word for justice. Pots for justice. It's my
I have
Instagram.
some and they're on my altar actually. They
Aw.
bring a smile to me when I see them. Uh, I want to say Viola, but Madeline, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
You're such a pleasure. You're such a grounding force in my life in the way that you consistently show up, and you're just such a safe space for me. And you help me come down. Like, I feel like I'm usually a big Muppet on this show, and I feel like today I got to be a little bit more human with you, and that's your magic. That's
Aw,
your like
thank you.
your superhero power. People get to be a little bit more human around you.
I will absolutely 1000% receive that.
Meow. All right, I think this is where we say goodbye.
Bye.
MeMeCherry presents a series of fortunate events. Fortunate events. Fortunate events.